Clip came out from Brad Garlinghouse in Apex, Singapore this year, predicting that in 5 years, XRP could handle up to 14% of SWIFT's volume.
In 5 years. 5 years, yeah. What if today, there's two ways to about SWIFT. There's the messaging, there's liquidity. Liquidity is owned by the banks. I think less about the messaging and more about liquidity. Because if you're driving all the liquidity, that's good for XRP. Anyway, so I'll say 5 years, 14%.
So to put that into perspective for you guys, he said it's about liquidity, not necessarily as much about messaging, because liquidity moves the markets. And it actually takes a significantly less amount of liquidity to move XRP than most people think, because when you look at the volume over the past 24 hours of liquidity that has come in through buy and sell orders of XRP, well, that's $2.9 billion, which is buy and sell volume. So XRP over the past 24 hours is just basically even. It's down 0.01%, so virtually nothing. But if, let's just say, for example, $100 million in buy volume alone comes into XRP, it doesn't just move the market cap by $100 million. It would move it by multiple billions of dollars, because all of the holders of XRP that don't sell, well, their portfolios would be worth more, which in turn affects the market cap and also the fully diluted valuation. So if just buy volume comes in, the market cap grows even more than that amount because of previous holders that bought at a lower price. And I've explained that in previous videos of why market cap is not as important as liquidity. So because SWIFT facilitates international transactions, well, it's estimated that there's a value of $5 trillion per day in funds as of 2021. And another source referenced that SWIFT handled an average daily net volume of 7.5 trillion in 2022. So let's just use a conservative estimate of around $5 trillion over the next 5 years per day. Well, if we times that by 0.14%, which is Brad Garlinghouse's prediction, 14%, well, that's $700 billion of SWIFT's daily transactional volume of liquidity. Now, to put that into perspective for you, XRP's market cap is only $134 billion. And so it's difficult to know exactly how much that would affect XRP in terms of price, but it would be a positive impact nonetheless because of this reason right here.
The US dollar, arguably the best managed currency in the world, has been devalued through inflation by, over 90% in the last 50 years.
Is it 90% in the last 50 years?
If you do that, like just an adjusted, what was $100,000?
For purchasing power.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, incredible.
So, do we think that's going to get better or worse?
Wow, with the printing press, yeah,
I think
worse.
It's probably going to get worse.
Yeah, makes sense.
And that's the best managed currency. Yeah, and by the way, we can argue about that. Actually, I should retract that a little bit. One of the best managed currencies. I mean, the U.S. dollars, I think many would say, if not the best and most.
And we're the reserve currency, yeah.
But I mean, and that's the best one. So, right. I think it's inevitable. And it's inevitable that, not right now we talking about is $2.5 trillion. Do I think this is an easy 10x over the next 5 to 10 years? Yeah, no problem. That doesn't freak me out when I say that at all.
That's conservative. If you
it feels safe. I mean, to the earlier conversation about asymmetric returns, is there a chance that it's 100x in that time frame? It feels aggressive, but I don't know. I think that many people in the United States particularly don't understand what it would be like to have lived in Argentina and have the Argentinian peso devalued effectively to zero multiple times in my lifetime. Why would you hold that currency?
And so that's comparing to the US dollar, which is considered the best managed currency. What about other countries' currencies like the Australian dollar? Well, if we just look at Bitcoin compared to the Australian dollar, Bitcoin is actually $167,000 compared to the AUD. And last bull run, Bitcoin actually hit $95,000 compared to the Australian dollar. Well, you guys can go on TradingView, you just type in BTC, and you can even type in XRP AUD, and you can see XRP compared to the Australian dollar is at $3.57. Well, if we compare XRP to the Canadian dollar, it's at $3.12. If we compare XRP to the Japanese yen, it's at 332. And so in a little bit, we're going to dive into the inflation calculator and talk about what this looks like versus inflation over the past few years, let alone what's going to happen over the next decade. But first, I want you to listen to this, because Trump's nominee for the Commodity Futures and Trading Commission is saying that Bitcoin and crypto will transform the lives of citizens. So we got lawmakers, massive companies, institutional investment firms, portfolio management companies going all out with crypto. So with them working on clear regulation right now, it's no wonder why we're going to see trillions of dollars flow into this industry over time.
This experience has provided me with 3 invaluable insights to bring to bear should I have the honor of being confirmed. First, I've traveled the world meeting with other jurisdictions' regulators and government officials, where I learned what they have attempted to do, what they have left to do, what has worked well or poorly in creating regulatory frameworks for crypto assets and intermediaries. Second, I've had a direct line of sight into the future of this technology and how it could transform our lives. I view blockchain as a horizontal technology that has the potential to touch every aspect of society, not just as a vertical technology purely focused on financial services. Lastly, I have strong conviction that the surest way to undermine U.S. global leadership in blockchain technology is to let bad actors and fraudsters proliferate.
So in the short term, when we see people like Elon Musk making posts on Twitter like this saying Donald Trump is in the Epstein files, will that crash the price of Bitcoin down to $100,000? Well, we've seen a recovery since then really fast. And now Elon Musk made this post at 3 o'clock in the morning, by the way, saying, I regret some of my posts about Donald Trump last week. They went too far. So whether that was staged, whether that was a plan, or Elon Musk is just off his rocker late at night tweeting all the time, it's boiled over nonetheless, and people have already forgotten about it, and they're moving on to the new piece of news. So long-term, real utility and value that absorbs liquidity is going to reign supreme. And in the short term, little posts, little pieces of news affect the price, but when you're in doubt, you zoom out. Look at what Trump is now saying about tariffs and with China. He's saying our deal with China is done, subject to final approval with President Xi. Full magnets and any necessary rare earths will be supplied upfront by China. Likewise, we'll provide to China what was agreed to, including Chinese students using our colleges and universities. We are getting a total of 55% tariffs. China is getting 10%. Relationship is excellent. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So when we're talking about XRP, which is definitely not a used car, it's more like a rocket ship for international payments based on speed, cost and value, and security as well too. Because looking back here in June of 2022, XRP was at 28 cents. Right now it's at roughly $2.30. So that's over 700% growth. Well, if over the past few years the dollar has lost 9.8% and yet XRP has grown over 700%, the reason why cryptocurrencies have gone up in value like XRP or Bitcoin or altcoins over the past few years is simply because the dollar is going down in value because they're printing an unlimited amount. Now, that doesn't take common sense to realize, but if we bring up ChatGPT to really break this down for you guys of what this is going to look like over the next 5 to 10 years, and if you took, let's just say $1,000 or even just $10,000 and bought XRP back in 2022 at 28 cents, then if you still held it in 2025, well, relative to the cumulative rate of inflation, your XRP would have outperformed inflation drastically. So your $10,000 investment in 2022 would need to be worth $10,980 in 2025 just to keep up with inflation. So we're not just investing in crypto to make money, we're investing in crypto to preserve our money while the dollar declines over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Because $10,000 back in 2022 would be over $82,000 if you're still holding today in XRP. So to calculate the real return adjusted for inflation, well, we simply divide the nominal final value by the inflation factor and then subtract the original $10,000 investment. So in real terms, your XRP gained $64,000 in purchasing power, a 648% real return over those 3 years. So while the nominal return is 720+%, the inflation adjusted real return is 648%. Now, can you imagine what that would look like with $100,000? Well, over the course of just 3 years, you've lost nearly $10,000 on 100 grand, let alone $1 million. You would have lost nearly $100,000 in spending power. And while the dollar amount still shows the same amount in your bank account, what you can actually buy with that goes down and down and down over time. So the real estate market is not really actually going up in value. It's that the dollar is going down in value to where it has to go up in value to beat inflation. It's the same thing for the crypto market. So I'm going to get into the long term for XRP and a realistic price prediction as well for 2025. But first, let's talk about the short term to midterm and what I see happening on the price chart, because this reminds me of, what happened not only back during the 2017 bull run during that consolidation phase, and then by like November, December at the end of that 2017 bull run, XRP exploded. But this reminds me of what happened between 2020 in August and then by November of 2020 when XRP exploded to the upside. This is what I think is coming for XRP towards the end of this year. But in the short term, I expect there to be some type of volatility here because of what we see playing out on the price chart. Here's an example. If we go back here to October of 2020, we can see the relative strength index topped out at 73 and then started to form lower highs, along with the stochastic RSI as well too. So we saw an initial pullback in XRP's price from 25 cents all the way down to 24 cents, and then we marched up to put in a little bit of a higher high, whereas the relative strength index put in a lower high. And same with the stochastic RSI, came all the way down here below 20 on that pullback, bounces all the way back to about 88, putting in a lower high. Then XRP pulls back again to about 24 cents and then puts in a little bit higher of a higher on this candle wick, but almost equal to the high of the 10th of October, while the RSI was in a downtrend, putting in another lower high, and the stochastic RSI as well too. So what this is, if you guys didn't watch my previous video talking about divergences, well, when the price chart makes higher highs and the relative strength index makes lower highs and the stochastic RSI makes lower highs for confluence here, well, that's either a strong or a medium bearish divergence. So if the price chart is making drastically higher highs, the indicator is making lower highs, that's a strong bearish divergence. If the price chart is making a little bit higher of a high, which in this case is what we saw happen for XRP from the 10th of October to the 13th of October, it was a little bit higher of a high.